Hi everyone, my name is Sam. I make music under the name Checkpoint, and a happy 2025. I want to do a little year in review, creative projects overview from 2024. I found some documents that have extra kind of background info on some of the projects. And I just, for my own archives, I want to kind of just talk about it and go over it. Yeah, it was an interesting 2024. So I want to kind of just talk about it and ramble a little bit. So if you'll indulge me. Um, so to recap kind of the year, it was a very tumultuous year. uh, Personally, I won't get into specifics, but it was like one of the more difficult years for sure. Um, and I had a really solid life routine for about 4 to 5 years that was kind of shattered this year, this past year, which in retrospect was good because I was so comfortable in this very like strict routine that breaking out of it was always going to be hard, and it was. But I knew it would be, and I knew I wanted to make the most of it. So um, I tried a lot of different approaches, I guess, or I tried to do a lot more creative stuff, and that helped so much. And it ended up being a very very creative year. Not the most productive in terms of released songs. That was actually last year, but very close. And debatably, I did more. I did more interesting ideas, which is cool. I don't like that this light is like in the frame. Okay, that's fine. uh, One thing about these videos, if you haven't seen it yet, is I don't do any cuts. And that is for me to get better at kind of like public speaking adjacent things. And it's just a little more personal. Um, I tend to ramble around tangents a lot or go down tangents a lot. And that's something I'm trying to be more cognizant of, and just in general life. So this is kind of a way to practice that as well. Enough intro. Let's talk about it. So, like I said, crazy stuff happened last year. So, not a whole lot. I didn't do a whole lot in the beginning of the year. I released that single Peaks in February, Living Life in Reverse Order. Uh, where is it? This guy, right? off frame. I was really happy with that. That was one. I'm not going to go into detail on every project because that's just going to take too long. But that one, I felt had some sort of concept to it. It had like it started from one big project file, and then I split up into each song, and it kind of had an interesting theme of like you're old and then you end up being young or whatever. And there was some kind of personal aspects to that where I kind of feel like in my life kind of did things in a weird order or out of order or in reverse order, you might say. But I was very happy with that. It's kind of like a house electronic thing. And then I released Time Frame, and that was kind of like that was the point where I was wanting to have like a big shift in my like creative routine. So we hit Time Frame. Another song. Also, look at this weird mug. My coworkers got this for me for my birthday, and it's really tall, but it's nice. So I have some coffee. But I digress. Time Frame. I was very happy with that one. That was the last thing that I put on Spotify this year, like on streaming services. Everything else has just gone on my Bandcamp or website, which is interesting because I like to release a lot on places where people can access them, and I did very little of that this year. But I did a lot of other things, and I wrote them down. I'm just now starting this document. So, stats, 36 tracks total. I worked on music for 6 game jams. If you're unfamiliar, that is a like this has kind of been like something that I've been wanting to do forever, was to make music for games. That was like what got me into making music, period. So I've been wanting to work with developers for a long time, and these game jams are little, usually a weekend long project, kind contest sort of thing where a bunch of people enter, like hundreds of people enter, and they'll for one weekend make a game from scratch. And it's really cool. It's a way that a lot of indie games have come about from these. Like they'll start with a prototype in a game jam, and then it'll build into a full game. So I found this dev that I've been working with for a while. We did 5 games together. We're actually just finishing one up this weekend, but this doesn't count because this is 2025. But we did five games. I think one we didn't actually finish, but we did 4. I mean, everything in the game's album. If you're wondering what that was, even though it says all the info there, it is a collection of songs that I worked on with the game. So one was one that I started with a buddy of mine. We never finished that, but I wrote some tracks for it, did some sound effects, and yeah, I got a lot of these done this year, which was really fun. One of them, out of 174 entries, we got the community award for like highest rated, like best polish. Basically, the visuals look really good, and I was really happy with the music. That one was Wind and Waves, I think, which is like the acoustic track. That was one of my favorites that I released this year. And then another one out of 166 entries. Another one we ranked 9th for audio out of 166 entries. I forgot about that. That's cool. I think that was Power Saver. And then the other one out of 38 entries, we got 3rd, and that one had a cash prize. So that was the first time I actually like made a significant amount of money from music that I made, which was really cool. And it was a contest, so it wasn't like a traditional like somebody hired me to do something, but it was cool. I got to throw some money back into my creative stuff, and I haven't yet, but I plan to buy like a VST or some sort of like instrument with the money, which is that was really cool. That was a really good feeling. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't even realize there were cash prizes, but that was cool. That was for Legend of the Fifth Sun, which was a very interesting one to work on, because that was like all samples, because I wanted to have like specific instruments from that location and everything. And anyway, tangents, right? So that was kind of a big deal for me this year, was these game jams. That was a real big one. And then obviously the two big boys from this year that I'm like so stoked on is the Song of the Week project and the Secret album. I'll get into those because I have some more thoughts on those. So I'll move on to other things. I built the website this year. That was in January, so I almost forgot that I did it this year. But and it's very basic, but I wanted to have a place that I could throw everything onto, creative projects, whatever. It gives me some leeway. Obviously, the Secret project utilizes the fact that it's my website. I was going to try to use Bandcamp for the same sort of process, but I couldn't. And I was happy that I had set that up. Gives me a different way to kind of go about releasing music, which is really fun. What else? I wrote this down, and I'm not even looking at the damn list. Oh yeah, my buddy started making movies this year. And so I was in 2 of those, one of which I'll be scoring, which is very exciting. It's a horror short film, I guess. And I get killed in it. Spoilers, I guess. But I had to like wear fake blood and stuff. And that's going to be, I'm really excited to work on that, because I have not worked on film scoring yet. And that's another thing I really want to try. So I've got that coming up. And the other one we like improvised. It was me and another friend and him. And so he's filming it. He's kind of in it as well. But then it's the 2 of us. And we just went out to a park and recorded for like 3 hours or 4 hours or something, and just improvised a movie. And it's terrible. I mean, it's like, it meanders a lot. It does actually. We managed to, because we improvised it. We ended up filming the last bit first, just out of happenstance. So we were able to kind of like build references to that through the rest of it, which was actually really fun. It was a really interesting like creative process. But it's terrible. I mean, we're not actors or anything, but it was funny, and it's not on anything at this point. I'm gonna try to convince him to put it on YouTube because it's fun. It's funny for us. I don't know if that's funny for anyone else, but it's funny for us. But anyway, and the other one, the movie is going to be really cool. I'm very excited about that. I guess those are kind of the major other creative things. I'm not going to get into my personal life in this. I'd like to at some point make a video talking about more personal things and structure and scheduling and these sorts of things that like are my lifeblood. But I'll do that later, maybe. We're already at like 10 minutes, so I need to get moving. Okay, big highlights. Song a week. Let's pull it up. Also, this is kind of a side note, but I have this like great I mean, this thing's huge. Shout out Isaac, he gave me this monitor. It's awesome. And I had this dual monitor setup. It's awesome. It's so cool. I don't do any creative stuff on these at all. This is just, I just play games on this. Everything I do is on this 2017 MacBook Pro. And that, I don't know, I'll talk about that for a second. That is something that I specifically decided that I wanted to do because I wanted to have a completely portable setup. I have very little like physical gear at all. And I want that to be so that I can move things around. I could take this to a coffee shop and have everything on it that I need to make music. The only big pieces of equipment is guitars, of which I only use basically two. I have an Axe FX up there, you can almost see, and this little audio interface and microphone back here. And that's it. I mean, that's like basically and a little tiny MIDI keyboard, because I wanted things to be very portable. Have I used that very much? Yes and no. Probably more no. I'll take the laptop to coffee shops and do like editing. So kind of a workflow that I have that I like a lot is I'll record especially if it's a song that's like guitar heavy or whatever. I'll sit down one night and spend like 2 hours just recording snippets of like acoustic guitar or whatever. And then I'll leave them all in a project and kind of have like a rough idea, kind of like fit them together roughly. And then I'll go to a coffee shop or whatever. And then it's like editing day. I'll put everything together. I'll like quantize everything. I'll mix and compress and whatever, and like build out the structure. And I like that workflow a lot because it kind of separates the two, like tangible physical side and then the computer side. And that's fun. Okay, good. We're still recording. Anyway, Song Week project. There it is. This was a real big deal for me. And I'll tell you why. I've been trying to find ways to stay once again, I like routines. I love making these little album projects, these little EPs. That's why everything I release is like 4 to 5 songs, because it takes about a month or two. I can get through a project, I can move on. But as soon as I finish something, until I have another idea, there's kind of like this weird period where I don't necessarily like want to just work on nothing. I kind of want to be like working towards something, but if I don't have it defined very well, I'm kind of aimless. So I've been trying to come up with this way for a long time to have a consistent like output of music. It keeps me focused, because that was one thing that happened earlier this year. Once I released Time Frame, until I had another game jam, I mean, it was like a couple months I just kind of like didn't do anything. And that's fine. It's okay to take these breaks, but I wanted to do things, but it's like I couldn't. And so this Song a Week project is like, as soon as I came up with the idea, and it's not a new idea. Like, I know a lot of people that have done this, but I'd never really tried it. It was a little intimidating to release something every week, but it actually ended up being like pretty manageable. I was able to fit it into my life. I want to start keeping track of how long the songs take, but the one I just finished up Song a Week. It's back, by the way, as of January. And I wrote down how long I want to take. This one took like 6.5 hours start to finish. So, I mean, a couple hours on a Monday night, and then like 1 hour on like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it's done. So it's pretty manageable, and it's a great way to explore ideas. It gives me something that's released that goes online, and it can be as weird as I want. I can just try weird stuff with it. And that ended up being hugely important for the Secret album, because I got to experiment with the secret alphabet, which you should know about by now if you don't. Yeah, it's cool. I'm really happy with this project. Some of my favorite songs ever came out of this, and that's crazy because I'll spend, like, time frame, I think I spent like 2 months working on and off. And then I release something in a week that I think is like better and more interesting, you know? But this was, you know, if you want to figure out how to like get the most out of your time in a way that's like healthy and comfortable, you have to kind of come up with a habit that is tailored to you. A lot of people will suggest things, but at the end of the day, like, it has to be tailored to you. And I feel like this project was exactly tailored to me, which it should be, because I, you know, came up with it and the rules and stuff. And it feels like I hacked my brain. Like, my mixing and mastering has gotten so much better, and I spend like a fifth of the time doing that now. That was like a week-long process before, and now it's like this thing that I do in the last hour, which is crazy. And you know, you get to try a lot, you get to learn a lot. So it's great. It's felt like a cheat code for my brain. And then the other big thing, huge, is Secret album. Let's pull it up. I don't know why I'm doing this. It's just kind of fun. That isn't all of it. Oh, can I? Shit, no, I won't do that. I was going to go to the actual page that has it all, but then you can maybe see the URL. This one, of which I have my notes that I took, because I took extensive notes this time, which I'm very excited about going over. This one is, I do this project every November that I call Project Month. It's different every year, but it's usually release some sort of like big thing, you know? Let's see, 2 years ago, was 2 years ago 4? 2 years ago was finishing up Checkpoint Island. I did another Project Month that was 4, the album 4, I did from start to finish in 1 month. Last year was High Score. I wanted to do an album that was 30 plus minutes in 1 month, so over a minute of audio every day. And that was really tough, and it was really fun. So this year I was like, how do I one-up this? How do I really push myself? And I had this idea bouncing around in my head for so long. I'd been experimenting with the interval alphabet that I'd come up with a couple months prior. And, you know, kind of because of the place that I was in this year for a lot of this year, and my obsession with like liminal spaces and these kind of like weird, lonely sort of feelings, I knew I wanted to combine all that. And I was getting interested in kind of like some poetic writing. I don't know that I'd call it like poetry necessarily, and I'm an amateur for sure. But I wanted another way to kind of get words out of my brain. And I don't have lyrics in any of my songs. I like them being instrumental. So this was a way that I could kind of inject lore into something. And because it was so personal to me, I wanted it to be kind of like intentionally obtuse and like hard to find and inaccessible, which is such a like weird, stupid thing. But it fits with the theme. Like the theme is isolation, big change, confusion, like lost feelings, and if it's like, go to my Spotify and listen to it, it's like, well, okay, that's fine. But when it's like hidden and you have to really like look at it and analyze it to even find it, is it's just like the theme is good. The theme is there. It's like more artistic that way. So that was a big deal for me. So I'll briefly go over this because I'm just rambling so much today. But that's okay. That's what this is about. So I did like overview, elevator pitch, track overviews. I did this at the beginning of the month to kind of say like, this is roughly the layout that I want to have. Because it was, 30 days, I wanted to really have my ducks in a row. I'd written most of this prior to starting the month. I have the puzzle layout, all the codes that are hidden in all the tracks, and the track names, a list of to-dos that is empty because I did everything. Good for me. And then I did a log, and this I'm actually really excited about going over briefly because I talked about how much time I spent on the project and exactly what I did each day. This is so smart of me to do, which is why I want to start doing this with the song a week. Like November 1st, I spent 3 hours, started tracks 1 and 5, made significant progress creating a melody and building a skeleton of the track. Wow. I wanted to specifically kind of glance at, there's two things that I find very interesting when I looked at this earlier. One is the distribution of how many hours I spent a day throughout the month. And two is how quickly I finished the music. Because normally on these projects, it's music and artwork. And the artwork, like the artwork for High Score, took me quite a while to draw. But quite a while is like, 8 to 10 hours. Whereas this secret project had poetry, artwork, and the like process of hiding it and inserting these codes into the song. So I knew that was going to be a big chunk of the month. So it's interesting to look at this. So I spent 3 hours the first day, half hour the second, 2 hours, 1.5, took a rest day, half an hour, 2.5. So roughly like a couple hours each night, making pretty big progress. Most of this was just the music. So updated project board, continued working on tracks 1 and 5, added ambient sound space structure, major headway in tracks 2 and 3, recorded ukulele and kalimba, made huge strides in all caps. That was a good day. Polished up tracks 2 and 4, worked on the poems associated with each song. That was actually when I realized the album corresponded with particular emotions. That was interesting because as I was, you write what's in your brain and it comes out. And then later you link it to things that happened. And that was interesting. I had this realization moment where I'm like, that's what I'm talking about, which is, maybe people know that already. Maybe creatives normally know that when they start something like this. They're like, this is what it is. But no, not for me. I had to figure it out on day 9 of the project. Interesting. Very interesting. So looking at this I find so interesting. On day 13, give it up for day 13. Went over all tracks, added simple bass. I worked for half an hour this day. Honestly, I think the music is done at this point, apart from mixing and mastering. If I had to release the album tomorrow, I would not be disappointed. I find that so fascinating. It took me 13 days to write those 6 songs, and be that happy with it, which is, I would say, probably not common necessarily for me. I'm usually pretty happy with my work, which is, I think, a blessing. I think a lot of people, a lot of creatives are very self-critical. I give myself a lot of leeway, so if something sounds cool, I'm happy with it. But this one was it happened so fast. I remember thinking that's fast. And so the rest of the month, there were some little details, but most of it was the extra stuff, which isn't that interesting. Yeah, it translated codes into interval alphabet, to tidying up. So anyway, looking at hours, we're still at about 2 hours, an hour and a half. I'm taking a couple rest days. I took 5 rest days total where I just didn't do anything on the project, which, it's 30 days, so that's already, that brings it down to 25 days. So it's interesting. And then once we hit like the 20th, we're half hour. So it definitely, and this is a pretty common thing for these sorts of things, but you kind of front load it. You do everything at the beginning a lot. You work really hard at the beginning, and then it kind of dwindles. And then you have the big spike at the end on the 30th, 4 hours, my most busy day. This is the one where I went out to the woods and recorded that video because it was a Saturday, so I wanted to do it, during the day, during daylight. But it was also the coldest day we had so far this year. And so I was freezing in that video. It was so cold, and I hiked a mile out into that woods. Just so stupid. But I'm happy I did. It looked good. My phone was like it was so cold when I finished filming, so I was trying to film quickly. And I forgot my microphone, of course, but what can you do? It was the last day. Went out to the woods, recorded the video, final mastering sesh, updated the web pages, uploaded all the music, set the Instagram post. Yeah. And then the first I uploaded and posted on the first, so technically it overflowed a little bit. But grand total was 39 hours, which is honestly not as long as I thought it was going to be. Under 50 hours for that whole project. I mean, a little more than an hour a day. That's like pretty manageable, which I like seeing stuff like this, because sometimes I think like working a full-time job and trying to have a life outside of this stuff, it can be really hard to envision a world where you're like able to make creative projects and live effectively, and comfortably. And this was really nice for me to see, to look at this and be like, okay, I can make what I would consider to be my current magnum opus in 39 hours in 1 month, in a November. That was cool. That was really cool. The rest of this is just the poetry and then the video script. So that's that. And then the other thing was... Oh, the other thing about the secret project was only a handful of people have found it. Some relatives I've given out the URL to. If you want it, just email me or text me or whatever, and I'll send you the URL to the 5 songs. However, I will not send you the URL to the 6th song, because that one is, the codes to get there are good. It's good, and it changes the whole, to me, and to anyone who's like probably really trying to analyze it, it changes the whole like kind of perception of the album. I consider the end of the 5th song to be the bad ending, and the 6th song to be the good ending, if we're thinking of like video game outcomes or whatever. And that one, I don't think anyone has found yet. So, and I kind of like that, as weird as that is. I want people to hear it because it's one of my favorite songs. I mean, when you listen through the whole album, including that one, it is like, it really makes me feel something. So I want people to hear it. And it's weird knowing that people are missing that context when they listen to the rest of it, but there's also something about it, like it's a treasure. It's such a hidden treasure, and like you got to be a treasure hunter if you want to find the treasure, So, yeah. To wrap things up, I wrote down thoughts, but this is kind of silly. I enjoy making music for video games. This was really the first year I got to do that, so that was nice. I know it had been on my mind, and I'm like, I think I would love to make a career out of this, but do I really want to, you know? And this year I got to work on 6 things, and I loved it. It was really, really fun. So yes, this is my chance to confirm that I actually want to do that. And I released a total of 36 tracks. The total time is an hour, almost an hour and 40 minutes, like an hour and 39 something. Which means I released a movie length's worth of music this year across everything, that's crazy. That's so much music. And how cool. I'm very proud of myself for that. So I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. This went on way longer than I thought, and I'll need to get a new battery in this recorder. But thanks for watching. I'll be back with the Song of Weeks and the YouTube videos, the corresponding YouTube videos. And I've got some other things that I want to talk about. So I don't know. If you like stuff like this, if you like the rambly sort of thing, subscribe or whatever. But thank you for being a part of my creative journey this 2024. And good luck in 2025. I hope it's good for everyone. Yeah, cool. I'll talk to you later. Go make stuff. Thanks.